Students, today I am going to discuss with you rather briefly as to what are cost management techniques. But let's before try to understand the context of strategic cost management or cost management in the modern world. The business world is becoming more and more competitive and global in nature. A lot of complexities are coming because the disruption that is coming into play for any business organization are not only uncertain but frequently coming up. It's not only once in a while but very serious like COVID pandemic, but there are other factors. Like for example, there could be a war, there could be new technology that is coming up. That's one of the most important disruptions that are taking place in businesses, and you need an immediate response to that. Imagine how China got into world markets, and how a lot of disruptions took place in major global companies. So much was the impact that those global companies started looking for alternative areas for selling their products, and India was one of the very interesting areas. So to cut it short, what I want to bring out to you that the cost management is to be understood in the context of contemporary economic environments wherein everything is in a flux. The complexity is increasing. So therefore the challenges before the management and within that the cost management are huge. For example, nowadays, in the last 2 to 3 years, the concept that is drawing attention of many of the cost management professionals are what is known as value creation mechanisms. Companies and corporate entities are seen as responsible for creating value to stakeholders, the people who contribute finance capital, the people who manage manufactured capital, machines, equipments, etc., the customers, the employees, the environment, and the society. And obviously, the technological capital, the intellectual capital which is drawn. How do you create value into that? How do you measure that value? And how do you report on that value? These are the very interesting developments that are taking place in businesses. And one needs to appreciate that how these complexities, these changes impact the business processes, sub-processes, activities, individual workers, team of workers. So the cost management gets a relevance because of these fast changing factors, maybe from any air, uncertainty, and their impact on your bottom line. The bottom line is no more single, it's multiple bottom lines for different stakeholders to it. Now, if these cost management mechanisms become more important, especially in the era of digitalized worlds, let's try to understand, are there some basic techniques? I would reel out to you the different types of techniques, names, but remember, these techniques are not like a traditional technique of process costing, job costing, cost sheet. They're quite evolving. To draw a parallel in your mind, if you look into the accounting standards, in the last 10 years, there is a term introduced like fair value accounting. It's a blowing process. From a double entry coming down to the fair value. It is not transaction based, the fair value. The fair value is an estimate of your economic environment in which transactions are carried. Similarly, in cost management, the techniques that I'm going to reel out to you, you need to appreciate it in the context of a changing atmosphere, a dynamic atmosphere. Now, there are 12 techniques, according to me. One can expand with more and more literature available on the subject. The earliest that is known in the last 30 years is activity-based costing. Then you have got a very interesting area of what is called the lean management. Okay? To ensure that the wastes are eliminated. You must have heard of zero defect management, etc. The lean management came from, in fact, just-in-time cost management techniques. Then you have a very interesting technique, cost technique, management techniques known as benchmarking. You keep comparing yourself on various processes, sub-processes, activities to see that you are not spending more than your competitors, or is there a way of doing the same thing at a lower cost by consuming less resources? Is there anyone in the market doing it? Can't we not follow that one? And the next technique I'll mention to you is a value engineering technique. Now, if you need to have a continuous improvement, if you need to meet challenges which are continuously changing in nature, you need to have an engineering mind of how to create value. Okay? Now, the engineering could be in terms of making a different permutation of the processes that you are doing it, bringing in new type of technology into your production process, or trying to find out new method of recruiting your skill-based resources, human resources. So there can be different types of engineering. The value engineering would be to engineer your business processes in such a way that in which you create higher and larger amount of value to your stakeholders. So value engineering is a very interesting area from engineering borrowed down and brought to cost management techniques to it. Then there is a balanced scorecard. If you are strategizing yourself and based on cost management techniques you are moving forward, how much you move forward? Are you measuring it in the context of stakeholders? What was your targets and how did you reach? How much you have achieved your objectives? So measuring scorecard called as balanced scorecard is yet another very important technique to it. Then there is a technique known as a target casting, the most dynamic and mind-blogging technique brought under the cost management. In contrast to the traditional accounting, wherein you try to aggregate the various costs incurred, target costing try to find out the cost of the product from the markets. What is the market price in which you don't have a control? From that market price, deduct your desired profit, you get a target cost. Are you able to provide economic outputs at that cost is a target costing. And then there are techniques like benchmarking. There's a technique like Six Sigma techniques to it. And then there are techniques like theory of constraints. In any context, what are the bottlenecks in implementing your strategies? All right, theory of constraints and throughput accounting. You don't go for the entire organization, but each processes, how the process input and how much time it takes to bring out the output, how much it costs. These are some of the important techniques. Let me take some of these techniques for a little detailed understanding. Briefly, let me start with activity-based costing. The activity-based costing, unfortunately, was initially understood as if a better technique for overhead distributions. No, the entire concept of activity-based costing originated not from traditional cost accounting. It was a result of the traditional cost reaction to the inabilities of the traditional cost accounting, that it was identified that each activities are being performed because of some driving force. All right. You add a different types of color to your manufactured car because a customer requires a new blend of the car. You add gateway for payment to your products because customer in the COVID situation requires an online payment systems. You introduce yourself into e-commerce businesses because the e-commerce market is expanding and the physical market is comparatively maybe reduced. Now, these driving forces make you to perform certain activities in the intention to create value. It's not the reverse. It is not that you have performed a particular activity that there is a cost has arrived. No. Basically, the activities are performed because of certain need, certain pull by what are known as drivers. Now, when it pulls and you perform the activity, you consume resources, that results in cost. So when you try to measure each activity based on the drivers, then the output is very easily linked to the activities, and you don't have a concept called, the overhead, indirect cost, everything wanes away because it's activities. So of course, I must add that it might be quite difficult to introduce activity-based costing easily in an organization because already it is boldened with traditional cost accounting system. It takes time to identify activities, to identify drivers, etc. But remember one very important aspect, that there are well-developed software available for implementing these activity-based costing. Similarly, I can talk to you about the target costing, right? Traditionally, the equation was cost plus profit will determine your sales price. But today, it has changed. It is the market price, which is called as a target price, which is the first input. From that, you deduct your desired profit. You get your target cost. And all your activities, resource consumption are geared or managed to ensure that you touch that target cost. All right, whatever the techniques you adopt. So in fact, target costing starts in a modern manufacturing processes right from the design stage. If this is the price, this is the cost that I have to have, how do I design my products? The entire processes are brought into the target costing techniques. All right. So some of these techniques are very essential. I'm sure you will have your videos completely on these things. From Takshila, go through that, you will have a very interesting understanding of these techniques of cost management. Thank you very much.